Welcome to the Brighteye Edtech Startup Festival 2024, Day 2, Session 1, where we'll be diving into the people function, specifically talking about hiring for international expansion. My name is Hege, and I'm Head of Community at Brighteye, where I spend my time working with our portfolio companies and the wider ecosystem, including doing events like this. So thank you all very much for joining this morning. If you're new to Brighteye, we are the most active early-stage edtech focused venture capital fund in Europe with 150 million euros under management across 2 funds. We invest in seed and Series A stage companies that help people learn and grow across Europe. So let's go to work. I'm delighted to introduce 2 of our experts in the area, Ilana Eides, Talent Acquisition Director and People Partner at Labster, and Roxana Dobrescu, Chief People Officer at commercetools, and also one of our dedicated expert mentors here at Brighteye. I'll let them introduce themselves a little bit more in detail as they start sharing their insights and advice and take questions, so please feel free to post in the chat. But before I hand over, heads up that we will also be going into a few breakout sessions, smaller groups, after the presentations. So please be prepared to share some of your own questions, challenges, and experiences before we all get back together and share a bit in the big session. But without further ado, I am pleased to give the stage to Roxana, who I spotlight here, who will start sharing some of her insights. Bring it on, Roxana, and I'll share my screen.
Thank you so much, Hege. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm very excited to have you all here. I'm based in Spain, so for me it's a decent hour, yet Ilana is based in Boston, so extra kudos for waking up at 4 a.m.
I did write afternoon, but not afternoon for me.
Thank you so much. And the idea is, obviously, we are discussing about scaling with focus on hiring, yet we would love to keep this as conversational as possible, jump in and be flexible with the agenda, and really trying to support you with your specific needs here. So please ask questions, contribute with any best practice so we can have a rich network and a rich sharing today. Again, if you can help me with the support, we obviously prepared a couple of materials in order to make sure that we navigate our discussion nicely. And if you look at the agenda piece, very interesting the fact that you start a business because you are obsessed with solving a problem, right? Like that's why all the founders are on this path. Yet, as you scale, you'll discover that 50% of your time is actually taken up with people. So hiring, retaining, organizing, inspiring, half of your time is around people. And that might set you up for a huge success or be a big obstacle down the line. That's why we're taking the time today to discuss around, obviously we are going to have a bit of an intro, but zooming in this international expansion and overall the concept of scaling. We have Ilana here who is going to support us with the how Labster is expanding and supporting this geographical scaling. After that, we will have around 20 minutes, hopefully, for group discussions, breakout sessions, for any sort of specific details you'd like us to discuss about. And if I'm going to introduce myself briefly so that you know from where to take me from, I am working in the HR arena for the last 20 years. My sweet spots are definitely leadership development, building high-performing teams, and this, skill playbooks that I managed to perfect myself for the companies I have worked with. In the last 10 years, I'm working in a startup and scale-up environment, very different industries, geographical spread with focus on EMEA, US, and LATAM. I am currently the Chief People Officer at commercetools. Absolutely amazing enterprise SaaS tech company based in Germany, but with offices and people spread out in 35 different countries. Advisor at Brighteye, proud mentor here, and a bit of about me. I'm married, 2 kids. I'm Spain based, born and raised in Romania. All right, then, before we move to our nitty, well, actually not before we move, it's important to mention the fact that this is an amazing book, a great resource I would like to recommend, because chaos it is when we are embracing and building a startup. And this book is really surprised me on how many practical insights had to offer. So if you're a founder, if you're building teams, and you are on at this point in time on this roadmap from 0 to 1,000 headcount, I would highly recommend reading this book. Well, speaking of chaos, and chaos that comes with a lot of, let's say, energy. We all know this more or less time span that it takes 10 years or more to take a company from an idea to an IPO, right? And this is a span of time that usually encompasses an entire economic cycle. Outside of the economic cycle, we also discuss about, like pandemic, war, and everything that's happening, elections, etc., etc. So it's a really strong decade or so in terms of going from an idea to a success. Yet, very important to mention that for founders getting started today, the focus is on achieving more with less. It's very much here, right? So how to hire tight and committed team, how to create a product that customers love, how to find the best way to sell it, right? And to be go to market fit. Interestingly enough, is that the data shows that in between 2000 and 2020, the time taken by highly successful VC tech companies to scale to 500 headcount has shrunk for every stage of growth. So if in 2020, you would have spent more or less 10 years to go to 500 headcount, right now in 2020 plus, it takes in average 6 years. What does it mean? Well, it means that scaling is more important than ever, hiring is more important than ever, having a really good investor network more important than ever, and really considering everything that's happening on the marketplace, things around remote and hybrid working culture, recruiting, retention, performance management, all those significant topics will and are having already more power than ever. So think on the fact that the road to success is shorter, and that being said, how do we get there? I would like to share with you a metaphor that is very interesting, and it helps me to really understand, like depending on the organization I'm working with, to really understand what sort of attributes we need in terms of hiring. And Hege, if you can scroll a bit, this is this is a very it's another really good book, by the way, this blitzscaling, and this analogy really is really interesting to understand, again, from a hiring perspective, where are you and where are you focusing? So the Marines take the beach, the Army takes the country, and the police govern the country. What does it mean? It means that Marines are startup people, right? Who are used to dealing with chaos and improvising solutions on the spot. You have them from 0 to 50, most probably. Army soldiers are scale-up people, those people who rapidly seize and secure territory once your forces make it off the beach. And this is most probably from 50 to 150 to 200. Police officers are stability people, right? So those people whose job are to sustain rather than disrupt. And this is happening once you are, having standardized processes and you can scale your practices. Important element to mention is that the Marines and the Army can usually work together. The Army and the police can usually work together, but don't put together Marines and police, because that will, and then I'm telling you from my own experience, bring a lot of tension. What does it mean? It means that if, as you blitz scale, you may need to find new beaches for your Marines to take, rather than ask them to help patrol the existing ones. So once you hire people, how you are placing them in the right roles, that's another like equally important art to master. But while we are discussing about hiring, what are you hiring for right now? Are you hiring Marines, Army, or police? That's the question, right? If we go a bit further, we see that as we scale and as we grow, we have this like a specific organizational challenge in front of us. And it's important to mention because depending on where you are right now, you most probably feel it from a very different angle. In the seed stage, this is the moment where startups must validate their product in the market and beyond the immediate network, right? So you're very, very focused on that. As you grow to Series A, the emphasis is scaling operations, executing a repeatable go-to-market strategy. Very interesting. Series B, expansion takes already the center stage, right? So this is the moment where most probably, I suppose, you are right now. You might be also in the A phase, being curious around the international expansion, but usually in Series B, startups aim to capture a larger market share, enter new markets, expanding geographically, targeting new customer segments, and basically, obviously, that comes with hiring internationally as well. And in Series C, obviously, that's around scaling operations, fostering a robust culture. My point is, and interestingly enough, in commercetools, we are at that point in time, Series plus, C plus, where we have a culture of risk. But the idea is, if you don't take culture into account from the pre-seed phase, it might be too late. Once you too late in the sense of it will cost you more in terms of reorganizing or readapting some of your behaviors. So as you are right now, depending on your stage and your maturity level, please make sure that from a cultural perspective, you are being very intentional. And if we go one bit further, Hege, this should have been a really good GIF in a presentation, but we are using a PDF. So unfortunately, the mojo is not there. But what I'm trying to tell you is that culture is like concrete. And this is another very interesting metaphor I'm using a lot because I could feel it on different level of maturity. So it's really easy to shape when it's wet because you can play with it and you can, mold it. It's almost impossible to change it once it is set. You'll have to bulldoze it after that in order to put in a new one. But basically your habits create your culture. Choose your habits carefully from day one. So what's your mission? The people you're hiring will create this culture. Hence, so important, every new addition to your team, it's absolutely critical. Now, we discussed about this part. Let's jump into the nitty-gritty of how much we can on the what elements of the hiring international expansion. And Hege, if we can scroll, I would scroll this part because it's not as important for our topic today. I would discuss about the stages of growth. Because I think those are important. And as you mature through each of them, you have very different lessons, right? And stage one, it's a very important stage because it's the stage that is founder-led. And at this point in time, the founder's personal network is critical because those people are choosing the founder, are choosing their mission, right? So they're like, you don't have a brand, you just have an idea. So people are following you because they believe in you. And that's really, really powerful in order to build a synergy. At the same time, working with founders, I tend to see how often they underestimate the amount of time they will spend recruiting in this first stage. Well, in stage 2 and stage 3 plus as well, but in this first stage specifically. So even more if you are a solo founder, right? You're endlessly sourcing, pitching and assessing candidates with basically no one to share the load of or with. So in this moment, in the stage one, very important is to keep the high bar and to make sure that you secure some senior hires. Because the initial tendency will be to hire hungry people. And that's amazing because you need them. In this first stage, you also need hungry and rather some senior hires. Why? You need the seniority mix because you want to avoid being overly skewed towards a young and inexperienced team. And at this point in time, you will rely on those first 10 or so hires in order to develop more junior talent and obviously to expand your referral network as well. So the seniority makes very important in the stage one, highly founder-led. The stage two, which is in between, obviously it's more or less, right? Like we take the approximate headcount benchmark in between 11 and 50. It's where we focus a lot on a new stage in our culture because we are introducing hierarchy. This is the stage when you are going to hire new managers. And interestingly enough, hiring managers to rely on, hiring managers that are not founders, also requires multiple adjustment to your approach if you are really on that path to maintain talent density and this values alignment. That's why my recommendation is to make sure that founders should still remain involved in every hire until 50, even more so if possible. During the last stage, it's important to make sure that you have this values alignment check and you are the high bar raiser. Also in stage two. Sorry, Ilana, you wanted to add something?
No, I 100% agree. I was just thinking more from like my personal life, not so much at Labster or UBSIM, which fits into these next two buckets. But in the beginning of COVID, my husband started a mechanical engineering consulting firm or product development consulting firm. And like I couldn't agree. He's in the stage one right now. So and I think at first he really did want to hire being cost effective, hire like the inexperienced, but maybe hungry and junior people. And I think the reality is that the amount of time it takes, yes, to, hire, interview, evaluate, but then also, manage these people day to day, and what is your hourly cost of managing these junior people compared to what you could be making for the business, and how you might be able to better apply your resources, your skills, to building the business, creating products in his case. Like it's very, very time consuming. And I agree, identifying and kind of finding the time when that first more senior hire comes in to make sure you aren't the only person raising the bar is really, really important. And I think bringing those people in early, he's helping people like teach them how to work and like be in the adult working world. And, that's really, really difficult when you're trying to build a business.
I agree. And one of the most used questions that I am hearing is, when do I need to have a recruiter inside? And that this is a really important change in how you work, because like having an experienced recruiter, and I would highly suggest having someone with 5+ years of experience, and we can discuss about this, will set you up for success. Going back to Scaling Through Chaos book, we there are a lot of study cases on more than 2,000 startups looking at what really contributed to their success and was a catalyst, and having this experienced recruiter that managed to support the scaling and hiring fast and hiring with high talent density was definitely an important factor. So I would say, the rule of thumb is, if in the next 12 months you already anticipate hiring 20+ roles and you see this cadence and scaling continuing, that's the moment when you should already considering bringing in an experienced recruiter. And this should definitely be your first people hire. by people hire, I'm referring to talent, like HR hire, obviously. So this is up to 50 headcount, and the stage 3+, and it's 3+ because obviously with extra 100 headcount you are adding, we can discuss about the different maturity evolution stage. Yet for our discussion today, I think like we don't need necessarily to go in the nitty-gritty of it. It's more important to understand that at this point in time, so like going on the path to 200+, it's really important to invest in your talent brand and in your candidate experience, right? Because people will be your best endorsers and your best ambassadors. And by talent brand or employer brand, I mean the message you broadcast out there in the world, right? So all the activities that enhance how your product is being perceived, how your people's LinkedIn profile looks like, what they're sharing out there in the social media, how you are putting yourself and positioning yourself in events, everything around like how your career website looks like, all your footprint, digital and offline footprint, is your overall talent brand, and you need to be very intentional with it, right? I would like to zoom in even farther on this stage 3 and just make sure that obviously the employer brand is one very important part. The second one is broadening your sourcing efforts. And why I'm saying that, because at this point in time, like having good referrals, for example, and we are having an internal quota trying to look at like 10 to 15% of all the hires. We want them to be brought in via referrals. For this, obviously, you need to make sure that everyone in your network is highly invested in your mission and in what you are doing with the organization. Obviously, a good referral program will definitely make it. I know a lot of founders who are even putting 15, 20K as a referral bonus for key hires. So I would say that this is a very important sourcing effort because your best talents will bring in other best talents. Outbound means like sourcing candidates, obviously equally important because you are hunting all the top talents in the market. And here I would like to make an important differentiation because I can see also working with a lot of leaders, this shiny piece of, going after some ex Google, ex Uber, ex Amazon, ex whatever. And I just want to make this important, like to put this important idea out there while people are obviously coming with their wealth of experience, it doesn't mean that what worked for them from a scaling perspective in another environment will work here in your organization as well. This means look at skills, look at attributes, make sure that you have a competency-based interview, because being hungry, having potential, having learning agility, growth mindset, that will mean way more versus necessarily 5 years, 10 years at a giant company out there in the market. And obviously the inbound piece means like the candidates who are applying directly because they believe in what you want to offer and they want to be part of your mission, obviously extremely important. My point is, while we are scaling and we go on international markets, I think it's really important to look at those different categories that make up your overall candidate pipeline. I would mention here the internal hiring as well, because obviously at this point in time, you should target in between 8 to 12% internal promotion rate as well. Another piece, recruiting graduates. I mean, this is no brainer, and yet there are so many scale-ups who still do not do it. I mean, graduate entry level can be a great asset, provides exceptional talent, especially helpful for technical roles. I mean, diversity is there, cost is there because junior engineers are obviously cheaper, leverage is there because you can support the senior folks to mentor the graduates, career development, etc. So recruiting graduates, having partnership with universities should definitely be part of your hiring strategy, no matter if it's in your home country or when you are trying to expand. And obviously be systematic about assessment. This means as you scale, you need to make sure that you use a very structured way of looking at interviews. You are using, again, skills assessment, business case. We are flying in and meeting in person with like from a specific level above, usually from team leader above. We have the final interview, in-person interviews, no matter the country where we are hiring, because we realize that this values alignment is something we really can miss out on. I will maybe pause right now and see if there are any, like questions, any specific ideas you would like to like put on the table. Checking the time as well. Oh, checking the time as well. Okay, let me then. Okay, I have two more things to mention here, and maybe like that will spice up our discussions later. Some don'ts, right? Like some things that we should not do in terms of insufficient focus on talent density. That's a huge mistake, right? And it will cut up with us. And that's forming a founding team that lacks technical DNA. That, in my experience so far, this is a must. Forgetting that no hire is better than a bad hire. A bad hire will cost a hell out of like our budget moving ahead. So if you are not sure, if that's not a strong yes, don't go ahead with it. Take your time and invest properly, because if not, it will cost you, obviously. Being reluctant to get rid of assholes and be players. You only, again, like talent density, right? You need only la creme de la creme, and you need people who are hungry and they want to get dirty and be part in the mission. Insufficiently focusing on diversity from earlier stages. Again, it will be very difficult. Like that's the culture, like concrete. Going to be very complicated after that, not impossible, but way more complicated when it comes to talent density to fix your overall diversity pool of employees. And obviously over-indexing on loyalty to the early team, and we can have a dilemma and discuss for 2 hours only here. My point is, it's like you have 6 years. You cannot spend those 6 years in all sorts of tensions and conflicts around like, yeah, but we used to do this. Like this fight in between old generation and new generation of employees. So I would not over-index on loyalty, specifically on the early team, because they are Marines, don't forget. Yeah. And the last piece I would like, yes.
No, I was just going to share. I mean, as you remember, also Roxana, and still at Labster today, 3.5 years later, with new leadership and just a lot of, changes, over hiring, and really speaking to kind of making sure you're not over indexing on density, but rather finding the right people. And I think getting super focused on your revenue growth and the product market fit, like those are the components that are more exciting than hitting a number of employees, and keep also the people there super engaged and excited and feel like they're part of a winning culture. But for us, we definitely do have this extreme difference in our culture between, the people who have been here since 2010, 2011, and are maybe just a little too comfortable to leave and find something else, even though the organization has changed so much and it's just no longer a fit for them, to the newer people and more strategic leaders and experienced people we're bringing in who fit the needs that we have right now to move the business forward to the next stage. So I can't speak more to, these kind of don'ts that Roxana just outlined here, because I think they really can be detrimental. And the same thing goes with the people who are just not performing. So yeah, just to echo everything here, but it really can become detrimental and slow down the business.
Absolutely. I mean, I suppose that everyone here is on the path to disrupt. And you cannot do that. You cannot reach for the moon if you don't have this a team with you, and you. Some people will stay with you until the end, until you reach the moon, but some people will become either obsolete or lose motivation down the line. So this piece can will considerably slow you down. And I know we have really good questions. We'll definitely come to them in a second. I have only one piece of information I would like to share with you. Again, like putting it out there, hopefully we can discuss about it in case you also have these problems or tensions you are seeing. So mistakes around people and hiring processes, because usually, like, discussing about what we should do, it's equally important, but like looking from the other perspective will give you a lot of can give you a lot of aha moments as well. So the first one, outsourcing early hiring rather than embracing founder-led recruiting. And what I could experience is that it's easy. It's very easy to hire an agency, a recruitment boutique out there and say, like, I need like 3 engineering managers. Again, just think about the stage you are in and what the impact that this might have on your overall culture. So you need to handpick, if you're a founder, especially in stage 1, like the people who will be there with you, your builders. The next one, assuming others can make hiring decisions and stepping back too soon from personally vetting all candidates. I highly recommend at least up to 50 headcount, but if you can do it even farther, make sure that this piece or in the values alignment and like the bar raiser, it's there, and you need to handpick them as well and be part of it. Not spotting when you need to hire an in-house recruiter, and we discussed about that, in stage 2, once you already have 15, 20, 25 roles anticipated to hire in the next 12 months. If you hire an inexperienced in-house recruiter, that will definitely set you up for a failure as well. So this is a really interesting calibration to look at. Inflating job titles, leading to resentment and attrition down the line. And it's another problem I can see already here. It's really funky to bring in your first marketeer who is having like 4 to 6 years of experience and call them CMO. Yeah, it's easy to do that. Paying them as according to their experience, but bringing him on board with this title hook will cost you more down the line, because obviously you will bring in more senior people. They will not be fit in the executive team, and you will have new tensions. Plus, they will be the role model from a C-level perspective. And do you want that? So
it's very hard to right size that. Yeah, and very hard to right size that in the future. So even as you're scaling, then if this person is a director or a VP, but they're not really at that level, but then other people are coming in expecting that, who also are not, at the level that you're defining a director or VP at, it's really difficult to step back from that. And for us, it's taken a long time and we still have work to do. So yes, inflating job titles, very common.
I mean, I remember a specific situation. It happened not long ago, months ago, when we let go someone on a finance director role, and that person got a VP of finance in another startup, obviously way smaller. Yet, I'm just saying that this trade-off on titles, don't let that be the shiny part, in order to attract a candidate. And please don't be misguided. If someone has a really inflated title, go at the skills, competencies, attributes, and really deep dive into what that person can do. What else? Being seduced by sexy brands on resume, we discussed about that. Make sure that it's a competency fit. Failing to establish and stick to compensation principles. And again, while we are discussing about scaling, if down the line you're having an acquisition, it's going to be even more complicated. But bottom line, it doesn't need to be complicated. You need to have specific levels, specific salary ranges for each level. Try to keep them more or less, to stick with the principles, because otherwise you'll have huge fairness and inequalities down the line. And obviously insufficiently focusing on onboarding, because as you scale, you want to retain people. Every new hire means a lot, equate to, at this point in time, for a scale up to 250 people, around 10 salaries. So that will be the cost if you are losing that person. Also the cost of hiring, onboarding, making sure that that person is motivated. So obviously this is huge and we cannot play with it. We need to have a proper onboarding. Right. Huh. Ilana.
I can also be mindful of time, but that was, that was so great. And yeah, I think there's just so many good takeaways there that roll into the next section too. Did we want to answer the questions now or just save them for the end?
I think it would be interesting to just see what, to understand a bit everyone here, what is their perspective and their challenges, if you're up to. So the first question is, I'm experienced that now the last point with having the Marines and the Army probably. It's like the first generation and the people who you are hiring after that, which is great. And great to see that there is empathy around it. The next question, Ilana, who should be the first hired in international markets for a company that is stage 1 or 2, so up to 100 people for market entry? Does and how the hiring strategy differ based on region, European countries versus US, for example?
Yeah, I think it depends. I don't know if someone's comfortable coming off camera or speaker to kind of share what your company is specifically, but yeah, I think I think depends on the reason for opening that market. Is it for, to expand sales, or is it because, you are looking for a skill set that you can't find where you're operating right now, and you need to look to different markets to, better satisfy those hiring needs to support the business. So I'd be curious to maybe hear a bit more about that specific example. And if you're not comfortable, we can talk about it maybe in the breakout. No pressure.
Hi, so it was my nice to see you. So yeah, I think it's more from the sales perspective, because if let's say we have the skill set and the engineering team at a home market, and then we want to expand, to actually gain those markets, enter to the schools, because we are K-12 technology provider for K-12 schools. So yeah, it's more for the sales part.
Yeah. Then that definitely makes sense. You've done a lot of that at Labster too, kind of hiring specifically, either if they're not directly in the market or in that country. I think being native to the country and obviously being native to the native language is so important. Like, for example, I'm thinking of the German market. We have someone based in Copenhagen, and other people on our sales team had tried to sell into that market. And it was very, very, very challenging, both in K-12 and higher education where we focus. So I think, yeah, you want to think of all the things that Roxana just said about the competencies and personalities, and that I think answers maybe part of the second question and some of what I'll go into also. But I think, making sure that, there is still a theme of expectations and values and mission and vision, no matter where in the world your employees will be. But I think for that first hire, somebody who ideally has already sold into that market before, if it's your first hire and first market you're expanding into. But for sure, someone who is, has a native language and just understands the sales cycle there, especially in K-12. I have learned it's very complex and it's very different in each European country.
Ilana, have you seen big different cultural differences in between Europe and US when it comes to hiring?
I don't know if it's when it comes to hiring. I think it's more culturally different in the ways of working. But I think, it's making sure, I think when you're thinking about culture too, depending on the size of the company, of course, as you're hiring and wanting to build a global company, I think in the hiring process, it is important to have a diverse group of interview panels, so people really understand that I'm not just meeting the US director of sales or head of sales, and that's the only person I'll be working with because I'll be focusing on this market, but rather ensuring that they understand they're part of a global organization. And yeah, and that this is a global company, that we operate as one. And I think just being sensitive to the cultural differences.
Absolutely agree. And I'm actually looking at Lucian's question. When hiring experienced people, how might we assess when the experience may prove detrimental rather than beneficial? The symptom of this other place, I used to do it like this way. I mean, I will tell you from my perspective, it's all skills based. So what we are trying to do right now, it's building a skills based organization, and this is really like the trend we see on like all the evolved companies out there. And we are not even asking for experience, like in the job description, in the job ad, no experience needed. We don't need that because we are having clear competencies we are going to search, interview, assess for. And if you know to, if you prove that you can know how to do what you are saying you can do, then we are going to hire you. And back to the second question, Lucian, I think like for me, it's the probation period. We are taking the probation period.
Just gonna say that. Yeah, 100%.
Really seriously. Like that. That's
seriously.
Not like because in many companies, like you don't even hear about it, right? And for us, that's like the first critical performance mark. And we plan for that. We train the managers on how to look at it. We extend it if we are not sure that this person will pass it. So whomever passes the probation period, we are 100% sure that that's a strong fit for our future growth.
And I think also making sure, because some of that time can go by really quickly in a startup world, so making sure that you do have proper check-ins and are gathering feedback, maybe from people this new hire is working with, just to really have a strong grasp on if this is the right fit. And yeah, we've extended our notice periods in different countries, and I guess that is one thing that is very different in the US. It's a little bit easier to kind of navigate that, which is why in Europe, that notice period for us goes, for director and up right now, we're at 6 months, and most other people are 4 months.
Yeah, extremely important. And what we can see that, for example, we have right now, like obviously that's a metric we are looking at, but 4% of our new hires don't pass the probation period. And like that's very much linked to it. Like we are looking at what is the quality of the new hires, and we are tracking that with the performance management, right? Like how many are meeting expectations, how many exceed, how many are poor performers. Like we can see where have we missed something in the hiring process. Ilana, do you think we should take more questions? Like what's your preference?
Yeah, I think so. I'm just realizing what time it is. So I think
I can just jump in there, because I'm looking at the time and also looking at the size of the group, and everyone seems to be quite comfortable to come forward. So I think we should probably just stay here, because then people can ask questions. I love the dynamics of the conversation right now. So I think we'll stay here and spend the rest of the time, and hopefully people will not be too shy to come forward, even getting on camera or asking questions in the chat. So
please
to take a major decision on that one.
Yeah. So then, Roxana, for this one, I'd love to know more about the stage 1 to 2 hiring, specifically if founder starts hiring to fill in skills needed in the company. How can one evaluate appropriately candidates if the personal experience for the role is not enough? Especially when hiring senior people, evaluating can be quite hard. Yeah, so that's where kind of that. Yeah. What do you think about?
I understand, because it's like if you're a founder coming from a tech arena, for example, how will you know how to hire like a sales director, or like a marketeer, or a recruiter? You are coming from a specific angle, and now you need to broaden it, but you cannot be a subject matter expert. So outside of really trying to go deep in probe at the skills, my advice is to make sure that you are having a hiring committee outside of your team. So you have, most probably you have mentors, you have peers from other companies, you have your investors and advisors in your VC that can support you with this hire. Don't shy away on asking them to get involved. I am usually supporting, different other panels like if someone is hiring for their first head of HR. How will you know? You need other people who walked on that path in order to probe with very specific questions. At the same time, like in my job right now in commercetools, I had interviews with other founders from other companies. I had interviews with members of the board, with advisors. So I would say you need a village. You are not alone. Raise the village around you.
And even at Labster right now, we're about 140 employees, spread across 23 countries. And even so, like there have been some technical gaps and other changes in leadership. And we've tapped, our investors to come in and help and interview, and even just to brainstorm, like, how should we put together this exercise? We want to ask them, what sets of questions, what should we look for to really help us get crystal clear on what our interview process should be. And they also would interview as part of the process and be kind of that technical, no matter how technical the role actually is, be that technical interviewer and can also speak to the organization. But I think that is a really strong resource to be used or within your network.
Absolutely. And I would say something else, Nicolo, back channeling, it's really important. And I'm taking that extremely serious. I mean, obviously, like a reference check, people will give you a network of people that they like. So that 99% of case is going to be positive, but back channeling really is supporting you to understand what previous experiences, working style, impact that specific candidate had. So don't shy away to leverage your LinkedIn network, leverage your offline network, just to really ultra check. So I think
the next
Lucian's, it's very much in line, right? For the area for the founder is not.
Yeah.
Can I just jump in with another question as well? Or I suppose just ask you to do like a little bit more of an introduction of you, Ilana, just to talk a lot about Labster, because I love again like how the direction the conversation has taken, but we just wanted to hear a little bit more about you, and then we'll keep on for the conversation
of
for
course,
another 10 minutes.
Who am I? So,
you're doing a great job.
So Roxana and I work together at Labster, and I've been with Labster, which is an edtech company. We create virtual science labs and immersive simulations for mostly the higher education market. We sell globally. Our virtual science labs, really are the closest product market fit for the higher education market, but we do also sell to the high school market globally. Our core market right now is still North America, but we do have a small team that's still selling in the DACH region in the UK and throughout parts of APAC. So we also 3 years ago acquired a small startup called UBSim, which is a VR nursing platform, which actually has headphones fell out. Sorry about that. Hopefully you can still hear me. Which has actually an excellent product market fit. And that is, UBSim still really, we're trying to bring the companies a little bit more together, but UBSim operates more as like a true startup of about 15, 20 people within Labster. And that product is growing really quickly, and that specifically is for nursing education. And that is only sold in the US for now. So yeah, I've been with Labster for 3.5 years. I started in talent acquisition, kind of leading the revenue hiring for most of the world, and then through changes within the organization, people changes, downsizing, scaling, downsizing again. I've also stepped into both kind of a people ops and an HR business partner role, which has been really fun and really allowed me the opportunity to have, a more holistic view of the whole business, which I think just helps our recruiting even more. And prior to Labster, I worked for a publicly traded 600-person marketing technology company for 5.5 years. As the only recruiter there. And then prior to that, most of my experience was in a mix of agency and in-house at a university, at a tech agency focusing on tech recruiting. So a little bit of everything, but I love the ed tech space, and like Roxana said, kind of getting crisp on that mission, I think is really what candidates are looking for now, especially in this post-pandemic time. I mean, people really want to work for a mission-driven organization and a mission that they align with. So I think it makes it a fun time to bring in new people. And I'm based in Boston, so.
So it's early morning.
It's early morning, yeah, but happy to be here.
Ilana, I think Tahar has a question you already have a slide for with the employer of record, which is a really good one.
Yeah,
and
maybe skip. Should we skip to that quickly?
Yeah, I think it makes sense, because the idea is, when do you transition from freelancers to your first employees? And this is a very important one. Like, I would say that obviously it depends, like that's the universal answer, but it's when you the workload increases and you see that your freelancers, you need more freelancers, they are full-time freelancers. You also see that you get some traction in the market, but usually you see that your service is declining as well. So it's like, okay, now is the moment when relying on some satellites out there, it's not enough. We need to focus on the core and really do this with more intent.
And I think that first part too, at Labster, we used Upwork quite extensively as a way to just bring in those temp workers and freelancers as needed, or we would just, post a job as a freelancer with a fixed term, and then we would pay them as a consultant. So then they would invoice us. And it went through a different process than setting them up on payroll. We still have a few people in countries that are actually very difficult and very expensive for us to hire a full-time employee in. So that, we've set this one specific person up who's in Brazil on a consultancy contract. And so he just submits his hours, and, he invoices us, and then we pay him, but then it kind of prevents us from, taking on the very, very high third-party fees that come, and complexity that comes with hiring somebody full-time, or through an employer of record in Brazil, for example, along with other locations that just make it more complex. So Oyster, I don't know Deal, actually. We use Remo first. Yeah, you can skip through this one. We can skip through the first few. I can just reference EOS later, but I think it's another good resource to add to Roxana. So if you go one more. This EOR one is good. And then maybe we could actually open up that last one as a question. So the employer of record 101. I did actually talk to Oyster to see if we wanted to switch from Remo first, but for now, we're working with Remo first, and we've worked with remote.com in the past as well. Maybe Roxana uses a different tool right now for her EOR. So those have definitely been beneficial for us when we were in hyper growth mode in 2021, and we really just the market was crazy. It was absolutely a candidates market. We were just trying to find people as fast as we possibly could, and really anywhere in Europe, because that's where we're building our technical talent. But as you can kind of see here, on the EOR side, you can expect, but I guess just to answer that question first, banking tools, how to pay these people. If you use an EOR, the employee is technically, an employee of that that entity within that country, and then they invoice you as well. So I believe so. Yeah, we receive an invoice from Remo first, and but they still act as a full Labster employee. There's no difference within the business. It's just a different payment structure. And so they handle like benefits run through them. Obviously all the taxes and all of that runs through them, but there is a pretty significant cost to that based on which country you are looking to hire somebody in through an EOR. So for us, you can see in the European countries, I put this range 15 to 35% of the annual salary, depending on location, is pretty much roughly in the countries that Labster operates today. That's what we see. Some of them go up to even 40%. So that was why I just kind of put this note here, like balancing this against if you have an entity. If you don't have an entity, it's a different story. You don't have the costs associated with an entity. But how niche is the role and how critical, like, to the earlier point, you need someone in a new market to sell and to be in front of your customers and speak the language, and that makes a lot of sense. But if it's a different skill set that you might be able to find maybe in a different country that has a lower EOR cost, or is it okay for the business to take a little bit more time and get creative to find someone in a location that you're already operating in? And then from the Labster side, within our entities through Bali, we have about 20 people in Bali. It's not technically a Labster entity, so it's also through an EOR. And in Indonesia, we pay 44% of someone's base salary in additional fees. So, these are tough numbers to look at, and really have to decide if it will serve the business. Did I miss anything, Roxana?
No, this is great. I just wanted to mention in the lookout for an employer of record, what we could see is that depending on your equity model, we were giving VSOP, so virtual stock option. Not all the employer of records could implement that from a legislation and tax perspective in all the countries. So and that was a big aha moment for me when doing the research, like just to point it out in there, depending on how your equity program is built. I know we are on time, and I'm very grateful for everyone sticking around. And I hope we can continue the conversation. I mean, like over LinkedIn, whenever you need something, just like give us a sign. I'm sure Ilana. I know Ilana. She's equally like willing and flexible to support with anything.
More than happy to. Yeah, and maybe if you just want to scroll up one more, I can just sorry, scroll the other way, please.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Actually, one more. But if these will be shared with everyone, I just wanted to share, for Roxana kind of shared her scaling from 0 to 1,000 book. Another really great resource is the entrepreneurial operating system, which we're implementing at Labster, and our current CEO has implemented within 3 other successful companies. And the book is called Traction for leaders, and then the book for all employees or for anyone is What the Heck is EOS, which can be read in like 1 hour, 1.5 hours. But it starts off by talking about a lot of the points that Roxana touched on early, that even if you are small, like getting really crisp and clear on your vision, values, and mission, and then evaluating the people coming into it who align best to that will help you be set up for success. So Gina Wickman, like both the books are fantastic, and really recommend you read them. And yes, please reach out with any questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That's absolutely amazing, Ilana and Roxana. And thanks to everyone who joined and for some great questions. I'm sure you can find both these expert ladies on LinkedIn, and also reach out to me if you want to be connected, and we'll be sharing both the recording and I guess the slides. So for those who couldn't make it, we'll also be able to see it. And with that, thanks everyone for being here, and hope to see you at the last 3 sessions of the Brighteye Edtech Festival, one this afternoon and 2 tomorrow. This afternoon on growth with an expert from Duolingo, and tomorrow we've got a funding session and a customer success session. So please sign up and we'll be on the same link.
Amazing.
Thanks a lot, everyone.
Thank you.
See you
Keep
soon.
in touch.